welcome back to Glitter Budget with your hosts, Anjanette.
And Jess?
And in today's episode, we're discussing another animated family favorite. Well, for me anyway. Also childhood favorite. The Flight of Dragons.
It was pretty good.
I liked it. Came out in 1982, but kind of was like straight to VHS.
Yeah.
Straight to video. But it was released theatrically in 1986.
Which I thought was kind of weird how that went
Yeah,
down.
yeah, it was. But it was I don't know why they did it at that time, but it was funny enough. Same directors from the last movie that we did, The Last Unicorn. So Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin Jr.
Mm-hmm.
directed this, as well as what we said last time. A lot of family Christmas favorites.
Yes. Like a
Like-
crap ton.
Yeah, they just kind of they had a monopoly
Yeah.
over.
They cornered the market.
Mhm.
They just went, you suckers love this kind of shit. Just gonna like crank the stuff out and just sit back and rake in the dough.
Yeah. But so with this movie, I think it's a little. So in the opening credits of the movie, it says that it's based on the book The Flight of Dragons, written by Peter Dickinson and Wayne Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
And then near the end credits, it says it's loosely based on the story of The Dragon and the George, written by Gordon R. Dixon.
Weird. What?
Yes, it says loosely based on the novel The Dragon and the George by Gordon R. Dixon. So,
Which is it?
I don't know. But um if there is a book called The Flight of Dragons written by Peter Dickinson, which is one of the characters in the movie,
Yeah.
Peter Dickinson is played by John Ritter. So in our last Buffy episode, I had mistakenly said Jason Ritter. I was thinking of John Ritter's son for whatever reason. We got our first negative comment.
It was appropriately. We were appropriately called out for
I wouldn't
our
say appropriately.
misinformation.
That person could have said it a little bit nicer. It's be like, hey, I don't know, no, like I don't know if you guys realize this, but it's actually John Ritter, not Jason Ritter. They were kind of snarky, and they gave us a dislike. Rude. But whatever.
It's gonna happen. Moving on.
Anyway, John Ritter. John Ritter voiced the character Peter Dickinson.
Yeah.
In this movie. And this was the first animated movie that James Earl Jones lended his voice to.
I saw that, yeah, which was pretty cool.
So-
like, such an iconic voice. So I think for
Mhm.
us, it was like
Yeah.
it's in everything.
But this was before Mufasa, so pre-Mufasa James Earl Jones voice acting.
Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like this one significantly better, way better than The Last Unicorn.
I think it had like a really cool story. So in this one, it's the world of like magic is dying. In
Lack of believers, man.
yeah, so they're because science and technology is starting to pick up, and that's what's killing magic, and that's what's taking magic away from. There are like 4 main wizards. There's Carolinus, Solaris, I believe,
Mhm.
Lao Tzu, and or I think they call him like Lotazol or something like that a couple times in the movie. That part's a little confusing. And then there's Omadon.
Yeah.
So there's the wizard who kind of rules over all of like the land and earthly beings. There's like the heavenly bodies kind of one, which is Lotazol, and then there's Solarius, who is kind of like ruler of the sea, and Neptune, and all that kind of
I
stuff.
feel
And
like
then
the
there's
earth, air, fire, water elements.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Omadon, the fire one, is like essentially a Hades type creature.
Yeah.
Wizard thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. His dragon's kind of a dick. Oh.
Yeah. So they have in this magical world there are dragons and all these kind of magical creatures and whatnot.
Fairies.
Fairies and so the 4 main wizards, even including Omadon, like they kind of have like this little council saying like, "Hey, magic is dying," and Carolina's the first and like main wizard that you're kind of introduced to is like, "Here's my idea." So we, you know, gather all of our magic, what's left of it, and we make this little magic realm that is going to be protected from everything else. Like this is where it's going to be our last bastion of magic.
Yeah.
This is where it's going to
Also referred to in the movie as a retirement village.
yes. That's what Omadon calls it. He's like, "So we're just supposed to make a fucking retirement village?" Well, yes.
Then and I think too, like they allude a couple or really say a couple times that like, well, this is the inevitable. Like we all kind of saw this coming,
Yeah.
but they kind of had the argument of you need magic to inspire people
Yeah.
to be able to come up with like the technology that they're using.
Mhm.
So if one dies out, the other will die out too.
Yeah, so it's saying like magic can't die out or it can't go away completely. So,
Yeah.
but we need to be able to protect it and put it in this little magical realm that kind of it would be kind of like Wakanda.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good
Yeah,
analogy.
because it has like an invisible shield over it. Like, but the thing is with this retirement village, Wakanda style magic place, once you leave, you can't go back in.
Yeah. Which I kind of felt there were some parallels with that, like their idea to do that, and then the magical forest and the last unicorn.
Yes. Yeah.
There were some similarities there. I thought.
hmm Also, just the similarities of like um the the balance of good and evil. Like you need one in order like to kind of appreciate the other,
Yeah.
and you need to believe in magic in order to see magic.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that part I think is kind of it's kind of cool and interesting. And but with this one, Omadon once he finds out once uh, he hears the plan and he's like, okay, no, fuck y'all guys. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to take my evil magic and use it to corrupt man. So, you know, the flying fairies that people that man would see and be like, "Oh, I'm going to create like airplanes and stuff like that. I'm going to have these airplanes carry nuclear bombs
Right.
and stuff like that." So he would corrupt all of the things that man took from magic and corrupt them even further into like destroying themselves so that he would end up being the only thing left standing,
Right.
him and his magic. So he, like a lot of stupid villains, tells them their plan, tells his plan, and how essentially how to defeat him.
Yeah.
He's like, "Aha! Because of my magic crown, this is how I'm able to do this." Until it's like when it's no longer on my head, that's when I can't rule. And they're like, "Well, now we know what to do."
Thanks, man. But I like it though how like they have to have this quest, which they specifically we got to go on a quest.
Yes,
But it was like had to be a very specific amount of people.
you have to, in order to start a quest, you need 3 people. That's what they said. Like three at the minimum, three, or you can't do it.
Just not,
Can't
it's
do
no
it.
longer a quest. I don't know what it is, but it's no longer a quest.
Exactly. So you have Carolinas has this dragon Smurgle. He's an older dragon, and he he can't do as much anymore because he's old. So they
Yeah.
have this younger. Oh my God, Gorbash.
Yeah. He was so he tried so hard. He was so cute.
Yeah, he was like just like that. The typical like young type character who thinks he can do everything, but he kind of does it in the not the quite right way. He tries a little bit too hard, but he means well.
Yeah.
And he really wants to have a war. He wants to have a battle. That's just what he wants to prove his worth, and that's Gorbash.
Yeah.
So the plan was that Carolinas was going to talk to Antiquity, kind of like the main magic entity
Yeah.
over all the land. He was going to talk to Antiquity and be like, "Hey, who can we get? Like, we need some kind of. You said we need an element of science or whatever to help with this quest." And they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, there's this guy. He's in the 20th century. Um, He's a man of science, but you need him. He has to somehow get him into this magical realm.
Yeah. He uses like basically the last of his oomph,
Yeah.
like chunk of magic to be able to do that. But I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool though of them saying just again the contrast between like magic and science of this thing that's supposed to like ruin magic, but kind of bringing that in a man of science, but who also has a passion for dragons and
Mm-hmm.
basically was writing that book, that novel,
Yeah.
Flight of Dragons.
So he had the book Flight of Dragons, and he had the board game Flight of
Yeah.
Dragons, and he is when you see his character, he's talking to a pawn shop owner, and it's like, hey, I just need a couple $1,000s to get this board game up and running. And pawn shop owner's like, you say it like it's nothing.
Yeah.
I just need a few peanuts to get this thing up and running. But yeah, that's a couple $1,000s, and you don't have that in your quote heirloom watch is more air, less loom, or more loom, not so much air. So, uh, Carolina's sees in this board game that they are like actual tiny replicas of him and his brothers and dragons and all this kind of stuff,
Yep.
and
His daughter.
his daughter Melisande. So he's like, haha, it's gonna be a piece of cake, making him realize that
This
magic
is
is
a thing.
real.
Yeah.
So puts himself into the board game, takes him back centuries to where they are. And he enlists him on this quest along with a knight, and it was supposed to be Gorbash, this knight, and Peter.
Three.
The the
The
three.
three.
The three. And Omadon sees what they're doing, sends his dragon Briog out to fuck some shit up. Briog grabs Peter. Carolinus is trying to make that shit stop. Briog drops Peter,
Dick.
and the magic spell that Carolinus was trying to do fucks up, and he has Gorbash and Peter kind of like merge into one thing. So Peter ends up being a dragon.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, now we need 3 people because our 2 have become 1. So now we need another one. So Smeargle's like, I guess I'll go.
What other choice do I have? Clearly, there's literally nobody else in this realm that could
Mhm.
go with me.
Exactly. So they're trying to make their way to Omadon's lair.
Yeah. He keeps like, throwing shit in their way along the way to
Mm-hmm.
fuck them up and more people. And I don't know, by the time the quest is like, they reach their destination, they got like, what, 5 fucking people with them or some shit?
Yeah, they pick up an old friend of theirs who they had thought was dead, Eric. He's
He
a
was
wolf.
dead.
Yeah, he was dead. He's at the bottom of the ocean after defeating some kind of creature, I forget.
It was an octopus.
Okay. Damn.
I just thought it was kind of weird. I was just like, you're the dog, essentially. Like, what? Why are you fighting an octopus? Or an octopus somehow like pulled him into the ocean, or like,
Well,
how do you get yourself in that situation?
I think they defeated each other was the thing.
Yeah, but why?
I don't know.
But why?
I don't know.
Need answers.
But one of the other wizards brings him back to life, was like, hey, you're technically dead, and these critters that are driving your friends insane with their chittering, they can only affect live creatures. So here's the deal. You, being dead, can drive them away, and then once you complete that task, I'll bring it back to life.
It's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah. So he does that. They reunite. They're going along, doing their thing. And then they come across these little dwarves that are trying to, like, I don't know, create mischief, capture the dragons,
Yeah.
and just slow down the party in general. And then all the dwarves are hit with arrows, shot by Danielle, this mistress archer lady. And then she and the leader of the dwarves end up joining them as well, Giles. Giles of the forest, and Danielle, the master archer lady. So that ends up being all the people on the quest now.
Yeah, like the ultimate part. I thought it was like, I mean, it was, I feel like typical quest fashion, right? Like you always end up with more people at the end of your quest. Like you always pick
Mhm.
up people along the way.
Oh yeah.
It's almost a given. Um, but again, like looking at like some of like the trouble that they ended up getting themselves into or not being able to prevent were like very adult themed situations. Again, that like as kids you don't really pick up on, but like shortly after they pick up the archer lady and Giles, they end up in an inn. That's what like the last inn before they get into like the kingdom.
Yeah, it was actually the Hell's Way Inn. So it's he said like it's the in between two realms essentially.
Yeah.
So like there's the hell realm and then the not so hell realm.
So
And
he's
he
got to
kind of has
cater to both people.
yeah.
But the knight gets like sloshed. And she's like, "You're serving their kind? Fuck!"
Yeah, I don't like him. Well, dude, like it's not my fucking problem.
So he's like sloshed. And then they go check on like the dragons that are eating this guy at a house and home. They're sloshed. Like, 'cause they just all get shit faced.
Yep.
And nobody's a help to anything. Like when the ogre comes. It's an
Yeah.
ogre, right?
Well, yeah. So the ogre, he like essentially guards the castle to what the ogre of Gormley Pass or something like that. He's like right before you get to Omidon's
Yeah.
castle. So I guess the ogre comes in, takes the knight and the lady type, and hightails it. So everyone else kind of has to like go after them. Eric is injured, and they kind of like leave him for a while. Like they left him back at the inn.
Yeah. I mean, they like the inn was completely destroyed.
Yeah, and the innkeeper was dead.
Yeah.
So it was Giles and the two dragons.
Yeah.
So
But the two dragons couldn't do shit because they were passed out drunk.
yeah. Anyway, so they're gonna go after the ogre now that they're no longer drunk. And Smirgle's telling Peter how to do all this. So before all this and slash during, Smirgle was telling Peter how to be a dragon,
Yeah.
how they can fly, how they can breathe fire, and all this kind of stuff. And Peter kind of takes it and tries to understand it in a scientific way,
Right.
like oh, like they eat limestone so that because it mixes with the hydrogen, makes them lift and all this kind of stuff. And they have this little thing called like Thor's thimble, which is like essentially um like a lighter that would
Yeah.
light their
Their gas.
their gas. And that's what has them breathe fire. And so they have the gas that lifts them up and they have to belch fire in order to have them come back down to the ground. So Smirgle's telling Peter, like, okay, ogres are impervious to dragon's fire, and they're also essentially all hard bone, so you can't hit them with stuff. Like, you pretty much just have to push them over a cliff.
Right. Can't bite them. Nothing like that.
And Peter kind of like ignores all of the advice. He's like, oh, yeah, also don't let them get a grip on you.
Yeah. But he fails
He
miserably.
failed miserably, so Smirgle had to come to the rescue, and in doing so, it like gives him a heart attack, essentially.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
Smirgle dies, unfortunately.
It's very sad. I was upset.
She texts me. She's like, "You didn't tell me that the dragon dies." And I'm like, sorry.
It was very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I wonder if he got laid when he was trying to do that mating dance in the air.
Yeah. And they're like,
At
Smirgle, at your age. That was funny.
All those little jokes for the parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But so now they have everyone for the rest of their quest. What we hadn't mentioned before was all of the dragons in the entire realm are under Omidon's control.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's what.
That's a key point.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the earlier, Smeargle kind of comes back and he's like injured. He's like, well, all the other dragons turned on me because I wouldn't denounce you and go help Omadon.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they realize that there's just Smeargle and Gorbash slash Peter are the only two dragons that are still left fighting for the side of good.
Yes. I mean, at the end of it, though, we lose a dragon, but Peter Peter defeats the whole situation with science.
Yes.
So
Well,
he summons.
they all everyone on the quest ends up getting. You think that they're dead.
Yeah.
So Peter manages to, I guess, separate himself from Gorbash, and now he is Peter the human. And like you said, go on.
He was just they're basically trying to obviously beat him with magic, so they're summoning all kinds of evil magic, and Peter's just like, I can logic my way out of this.
Yeah.
So summons just basically every type of science that there is, and is able to defeat the evil man and grab the crown.
Yeah. But in
Hightail
order
it out of there.
for him to defeat Omadon for good, it's like he had to denounce all magic.
Yeah. Which was hard for him because obviously, like, he knows it's real.
Yeah.
It was something that he kind of always knew was real. Like, so to have to denounce that, and basically, I think that essentially, for like a hot second, he was able to like give the crown over to what's her tits.
Melisande.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then immediately went back to his time,
Mm-hmm.
which they totally ripped off the scene from Sleeping Beauty, like bad.
Yeah. But hey,
I mean, I'm just surprised that Disney didn't like.
well, Disney doesn't own Sleeping Beauty. That was a story from beforehand. So if that author knew, then maybe they had a little tiff. But
True. All right. Touche.
yeah. So the mouse can't technically be like, "Hey, that belongs to me."
I just assume the mouse owns everything.
Well, they do, but I mean, if they had like a fucking
The
a
full
mouse and a
rights.
lady mouse in the story, they could be like, "Wait a second, that's our stuff."
This looks really familiar.
Mm. But yeah, so he denounces all magic. Keeps the gold stuff that he was given because he was given a gold shield of Saturn.
Yeah.
Because they had those were some of the things that they were allowed to use on the quest. They had a flute that could put dragons to sleep,
Conveniently.
and a shield that would repel Omadon's magic. Also convenient. And they'd forgotten about these things until the last minute.
Of course. I mean, they were hungover.
Yeah, that's pretty. I guess that's kind of why. But they use these things. Peter is back in his time. Using the shield, he's able to pawn that off to get all of the thousands of dollars that he needs to start his little board game up and running and probably finish his novel.
Yeah. And he gets the lady at the end because she decides to
Leave magic.
leave magic behind. She also brings the crown too, right? The pawn off.
Does she?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she does. Oh yeah. Because the pawn shop owner is like, "Where the fuck do you kids get these things?"
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So they get to live happily ever after. The one thing that I thought was like kind of creepy was that the knight had been in love with Melisande since she was like 5.
Yeah. But he was like, I'm just gonna wait till she was of age, of course. But like I made it my business that like I'm gonna be in love with her and then we're gonna, happily ever after when she's of age.
When she's of age. When she's of age. And then a pretty redheaded lady, of course, comes across his vision, and so those two end up together.
Just far more appropriate.
Tis. And also convenient.
It's also kind of convenient that like when he was doing this board game that he based her character off of like the woman's of my dreams and everything I could possibly want in a woman. He's just like, there it is.
Yep.
Just is that easy? This whole time?
I could just make a tiny game figure of the perfect woman of my dreams and she'll come to life. Wouldn't that be fun? Anyway.
Where'd you go there?
No, no.
Yeah?
No. But yeah, this was I liked the story of this one. I thought it
Yeah.
was more original, even though I don't know where the story comes from, whether it's the book, the one book, the other book, that who knows what.
I thought it was a cool, again, like, introduction between, like, merging, the 20th century with magic and,
Hmm.
kind of somebody in the 20th century, that's all you know is science, but, like, no, I think there's something else out there, like, you know what I mean? And kind of just, like I said, merging those two is pretty cool, and the story made more sense.
It did.
It's
Not as
funnier.
many. Yeah, that was funnier, and I liked the wolf. He was one of my favorite
It is
characters.
pretty cool.
He
For a hot second, I thought he was going to die when those goddamn forest elves things pushed all the boulders on him, and I'm like,
yeah,
cool,
he got the
cool.
shaft. He died a lot
Yeah.
or got injured a lot because a lot of things fell on him. The
Poor
boulders, the inn.
guy.
He fell off a cliff with that thingy,
Oh, yeah, the rat thing.
the queen rat thing.
Yeah.
And then, well, he did die from the octopus. So
He's been through it, man.
yeah,
But
and
he always had a good attitude throughout the whole thing.
he did, and him at the end of the movie yelling Carolinas. That since I saw that movie when I was young, anytime I would hear a name similar, so Caroline, Carolina, or whatever like that, North Carolina, I say Carolinas in my head because I'm insane.
Now that I know that.
Yeah. But just I don't know. I really liked that movie. Just it brings back a lot of like childhood memories and
Oh.
Smurgle and it's just cool. Anyway,
So next movie,
the
well,
next movie.
pack it in there, kid. Lock it
Simpler-
down.
Simpler time. Anyway, what are we doing next?
Anastasia.
Oh yes, the non-Disney animated film around that similar time.
Yes.
Bartok. I'm excited about Bartok. I love Bartok. Do you don't? You're not? Oh, okay. Cool.
I'm just letting you have your thing. I'm just letting you have your moment right now.
Be like keel over like cousin Izzy mid mango. Stress. It's a killer. I had a Bartok talking bat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
you'd squeeze me and be like, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And he would say, like, stress, eats a killer. I give her a ha and a hi-ya and I kick her, sir.
Do a very good impersonation.
I did that a lot as a child since that came out too. I remember I would quote Anastasia and no one knew what I was talking about.
Oh.
I would sometimes say like, "Oh, I'll keel over mid mango," and they would be like,
What's wrong with you?
"Like I've never seen you eat a mango." I'm like, just it's an expression. It's a quote. Stress. All right.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned for Anastasia. That'll be next week. And if you want to watch Flight of Dragons, that is also available on demand.
And or to rent.
Yes, for like $3.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty cheap.
yeah, good stuff. And both this movie and The Last Unicorn, they're only like an hour and a half long. So
They're the traditional length of a movie, not 2 to 2.5 hours fucking long that we get now.
yeah, back in the day, man, back in the day, movies used to be
80 to 90 minutes.
quite short.
Yeah.
And who's to blame for why they went to 2 hours to Martin Scorsese is definitely one person to blame.
Oh, yeah. And,
and James Cameron.
yes.
Was that who you were thinking of
I
or someone
think
else?
I'm trying to remember, and this is really bad. Who did Titanic?
I think James
James
Cameron.
Cameron. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why. Okay, yeah. Because that's like I feel like that's the first movie that I went to go see.
That
Was
was like
a
2.5 hours.
yeah. That shit was long.
And Peter Jackson. Because you didn't see those fucking movies. Shut up.
Nope. I mean Titanic. I did. I
She
went.
just blankly was like, mm-hmm,
Titanic.
yep.
I did. I went to my dad went to go take me to see it, and that was like the first time I remember seeing my dad cry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep.
We're watching Lord of the Rings. Okay? We're watching them. Be prepared. The extended editions.
Oh fuck.
The extended edition.
All right. Anyways, tune in next week for Anastasia. If you like our vibe, please like and subscribe.
And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.